I saw today, what we have seen, looks more like those countries than the extraordinary nation that I am privileged to call home. And I think about the country that a lot of people, oh, well, China. Let me just say something. Almost no one here has worked hard on the issue of China. Sanction, twice sanction, or what's the sanction? Double sanction. And I can't travel there. China's laughing. They're loving this tonight. In Beijing, they're high-fiving because they pointed us and say, this is proof. The future belongs to China, America. Vladimir Putin. There's nothing Vladimir Putin could have come up with better than what happened here. Makes us look under total chaos. Not to mention the Ayatollah. Probably bragging to everybody. Look what's happening to the great Satan. I just love it. It is crazy. Everybody in this country has lost their minds on politics. And we have forgotten that America is not a government. America's not a president. America's not a Congress. Let me tell you what America is. America's your family. America's your faith. America's your community. That's America. That's what our adversaries don't understand. That's what we need to remember. That is how we're going to rebuild this country in time of age and have a community brighter than our past. And so that's why I feel so strongly about this. Why I hope those who disagree with me will understand.
The senator from Hawaii.
Mr. President, it has been hard at times to find the words to describe the full harm Donald Trump has inflicted on our country. We can spend hours dissecting how his policies have made us less safe, less healthy. But his presidency has also been a profound moral failure. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, a father from Hawaii joined me at one of my talk story sessions in my office. And he asked me a question that struck me hard at that time and has stuck with me until today. He said, how can I tell my son that lying is not okay when the President of the United States lies every single day? I struggle to answer this question. And I'm not sure I could offer an adequate answer now. But this conversation remains a clear example of how we do not live in normal times. How is it normal as we and the world watch in horror as an angry mob stormed the United States Capitol? Blood was shed, people were hurt, vandalism occurred. It is not normal when we have a president who lies every single day. And even in the face of this vandalism, this mob, he really doesn't have much to say except, I love you. It's not normal when in the middle of a pandemic that has claimed the lives of over 350,000 Americans, which is nearly the combined population of the islands of Maui, the Big Island, we have a president who only seems to care about spreading conspiracies to undermine confidence in our elections and our democracy. And it's not normal when duly elected senators who took an oath to uphold the Constitution pull a stunt to try and nullify millions of votes in 6 states so that Donald Trump can win. I call this effort a stunt because it is doomed to fail. We have a strong bipartisan majority, as noted in the vote that we just took, and both chambers of Congress who reject this stunt. And courts have ruled against Trump and his allies in more than 60 cases. So whenever this farce ends, the result will be the same. Donald Trump will have lost the election, and Joe Biden will become the 46th president of the United States. You can tell a lot about a person from the way they handle defeat. The way Donald Trump has handled defeat says a lot about who he is. Watching so many of our colleagues indulge the president tells us a lot about them, too. We don't have to look back very far in history to find examples of candidates who lost tough races but demonstrated their character in defeat. Our colleague, Senator Romney, graciously conceded his defeat to President Obama in noting that, quote, at a time like this, we can't risk partisan bickering and political posturing. Our leaders have to reach across the aisle to do the people's work, and we citizens also have to rise to the occasion. And in 2000, during the election, with substantial irregularities and partisan intervention from the Supreme Court, Al Gore nevertheless put his country first. Yes, let there be no doubt that while I strongly disagree with the court's decision, I accept it. And tonight, for the sake of our unity as a people, the strength of our democracy, I offer my consent. As I reflect on the service of these distinguished public servants and the acts they took to maintain our democracy, I'm also drawn to remarks President Obama made 4 years ago in his farewell address to the nation when he warned that our democracy is threatened whenever we take it for granted. It is a particularly sage warning as we contend with the President of the United States seeking to nullify their election simply because he lost. We have to stand up, speak out, and fight back because our democracy is threatened. American democracy has endured over the centuries in large part because our institutions serve as guardrails to keep us from going over the cliff. As elected officials, we can strengthen these guardrails by listening to our own conscience in moments of peril, by having what our friend John Lewis called before making a big decision, John would say, listen, self, this is what you must do. This is where you must go. Today, we can follow John's example. Listen to our conscience. Stand up for our Constitution and choose what is right. I yield the floor.
The senator remains recognized.
Mr. President, let me begin my remarks tonight by expressing my heartfelt gratitude to the members of the law enforcement community and the National Guard, whose hard work and courage made it possible for us to resume our deliberations tonight. We return to this chamber tonight undeterred by the violence we witnessed and strengthened in our determination to fulfill our constitutional duties. Mr. President, the Constitution is the foundation of our American democracy, and the Constitution is what must guide our decisions on the presidential election. The process the Constitution sets forth for electing presidents through the Electoral College is straightforward. The people vote. Electors are chosen. The electors vote. Then Congress counts the electors' votes. That final step in the process is why we have convened today. Counting the votes of the electors, a function that the 12th Amendment assigns to Congress, is an administrative and largely ceremonial act. Our job is simply to count the votes certified by each state, nothing more. We should not attempt to usurp the roles of the voters, the states, or the Electoral College. Mr. President, the American people have done their job, turning out in record numbers to vote in the midst of a frightening pandemic. Indeed, as a percentage of the voting eligible population, the turnout was the highest in 120 years. Similarly, in the midst of this pandemic, hundreds of election officials and volunteers have done their job, staffing polling places and faithfully counting and often recounting votes. The states have done their job by certifying the election results. Now, Mr. President, I've heard the proponents of these objections raise questions about whether the various states conducted their elections properly. When disputes over elections arise, candidates are able to appeal to our legal system, not Congress, for recourse. In the 2 months since the 2020 election, the president's lawyers and allies have had the opportunity to make their arguments and challenge election results before the courts. Notably, every one of nearly 60 lawsuits that they brought forward have been rejected. In fact, the Supreme Court has twice refused to hear their election challenges. Mr. President, we must abide by these rulings. The time has now come for Congress to do its job. We should affirm the certified results of each state by counting the votes of their electors. Mr. President, altering the results of the Electoral College would set a terrible precedent in which the party in control of Congress could override the will of the voters and overrule our courts to unilaterally choose the next president. One senator attempted such a maneuver after the election in 2004, and the Senate overwhelmingly rejected that effort. The Senate has demonstrated by its vote tonight that it will follow that precedent and do so again. Today, Mr. President, I will continue to vote to reaffirm the foundation of our democracy, the Constitution of the United States, and I will reject these challenges to the Electoral College. Thank you.
Mr. President.
The Senator from Oregon.
Mr. President, I invite all of my colleagues to cast your eyes upon these three boxes sitting on the table in front of the dais. These three boxes contain the certified results from every state in our union regarding how that state voted, how their electors have voted for the President of the United States of America. You know, you cast your eyes on these three boxes, and you know there's something special. You see that there are straps on them holding the top on, straps around the side, and they're engraved, beautiful handle, beautiful leatherwork, crafted in the craftsmanship of our very minutes to say to the world that their cargo is protected. Now there's these boxes. The third box is brand new. It was crafted because so many states were celebrating this process. They started using very large forms, very large envelopes, very large seals to put those ballots into and got the new box. This box contains the voice of the American people weighing in as they have election after election after election. They've been used, these two smaller boxes, in the last 14 elections. They carry voice. They are transported through those doors to the House of Representatives, where the Senate and House gather to witness the opening of the envelopes to determine who will be the President of the United States. It is our constitutional responsibility to witness the counting. That is what the Constitution calls for. Tonight, when this Senate chamber was under attack by domestic terrorists, we were held here in this room, doors locked, protected with the help of the Capitol Police. They did an excellent job, and then they escorted us to a safe room. And that announcement came quickly. And when that announcement came, our senior assistant parliamentarian, Steve Hildebrand, organized the team to rescue these boxes and keep them safe. Now, thank you to her and the entire team that rescued the voice of the American people. Had they not done so, when the hooligans outside, disrespecting the Constitution, would have come in here and opened these boxes and burned the ballot, destroying the voice of the people symbolically. And I know no one in this chamber wanted something like that to happen. Because we're here to defend the Constitution, to defend the integrity of the election process, not to allow it to be destroyed. Although we are 100 senators, or 99 actually now, because there's only 99 of us who are duly elected at the moment, 99 senators united across party defending these ballots from the hooligans outside. There's more than one way these ballots can be destroyed. And that is for this chamber and the House chamber to vote that one of those envelopes representing the state will be shredded, will be burned, but those votes will be discounted. We just held a vote on whether or not the envelope containing the electoral votes from Arizona should be burned. We defended these ballots against the hooligans outside. But there are those in this chamber supporting the destruction of the voice of the citizens of Arizona who didn't vote. And we are coming back later tonight to vote on whether to shred or burn the ballots for the people of Pennsylvania. So we have to stand together to say absolutely not. The constitutional responsibility is for us to defend the process, not to proceed to destroy these ballots. Now, in spite of all the troubling things that have happened in this chamber this evening, something beautiful happened. And that is, we sat here in this chamber, all of us listening to each other, 5-minute speeches, hearing each other out, diverse views, wrestling with the complicated issues. It's really the first time that's happened in the 12 years I've served in the Senate. We need to restore the process of struggling with America's issues together on the floor of the Senate. That's the Senate I saw when I first came here as an intern for my home state senator in 1976. That's the Senate that I saw when I worked for Congress in the 1980s. That's the Senate that has disappeared. There is a conversation going forward between Democrats and Republicans to restore the ability to hold debate on the floor, to restore the ability to have amendments on the floor, so that we deliberate and wrestle with, in a very public and transparent fashion, the big issues. So let's take this moment when we're rethinking how to restore the institutions of our government, to restore and improve how this Senate operates, to deal with the issues ahead of us, so that this moment is a moment where we come together rather than be divided, where in a bipartisan fashion we craft a strategy to restore issues to the floor, bills and amendments and debate and decisions before the public. So, out of a dark moment can shine a bright light, a renewal, and is a moment much needed now. A moment much needed in the executive branch as we, on the 20th of January, welcome new leadership. And it's a moment much needed for us to restore the Senate to being the deliberative body once renowned and respected around the world. Let's defend these ballot boxes, both from the hooligans outside and those who would vote to destroy the ballots from any given state, and let us come together and restore the Senate and fight for the vision of our We the People Republic. I yield the floor.
President.
The senator from Delaware is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. President, free, fair elections are the lifeblood of our democracy. Charges of unfairness are serious, which we'll all agree. But calling an election unfair does not make it so. Charges require specific allegations, and then they require proof. We have neither here. Those are not my words. Those are the words of the judge on the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, rejecting President Trump's legal challenges to the Pennsylvania election. Might add, a judge who was a longtime member of the Conservative Federalist Society and was nominated to the bench by none other than Donald Trump. Mr. President, the 2020 presidential election was hard fought, we'll all agree. But the American people spoke clearly and they spoke decisively. 81.2 million voters voted for Joe Biden. 81.2. 74.2 million voted for Donald Trump. 51.3% of the vote went for Joe Biden. 46.8% of the vote was for Donald Trump. 306 electoral college votes for Joe Biden. 232 electoral college votes for Donald Trump. Just 4 years earlier, Donald Trump referred to that kind of outcome as a landslide for him. And he lost the popular vote by 3 million votes. But accepting the outcome of an election can be difficult when our political party doesn't win. We've all felt that before. But calling an election unfair does not make it so. More than 60 federal and state courts involving more than 90 judges, many of whom were nominated by Republican presidents, including Donald Trump, are all in agreement. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? All in agreement. No evidence of widespread fraud, wrongdoing, or other irregularities have been uncovered during the 2020 election. That is a victory for democracy, for our democracy. Unfortunately, some of our colleagues today ask us to do the same thing that Donald Trump asked of the Secretary of State for the state of Georgia, to overturn the results of the 2020 election without specific allegations and, more importantly, without any proof. Our colleagues are asking us not to abide by the will of the people, but to bend to the will of one man, Donald Trump. In 1787, delegates from the 13 colonies convened in Philadelphia to debate the future of what would become the United States of America. Our founders disagreed on a lot of things. But you know, they all agreed on one thing for sure. They did not want a king. They did not want a monarch. Many of them had been there, done that. They didn't want to see it and feel it again. And they set up this intricate system of checks and balances to ensure that we would never have that all-powerful king in this country. That system of checks and balances is being pushed to a dangerous limit here today. But that system will prevail. Along with it, our democracy. Here are just some of the claims that Donald Trump and his legal team have made, and that our colleagues lend credence to here today. That Venezuela, Cuba, and China rigged our country's voting machine in favor of Joe Biden. That dead people voted in this election, and they only voted for Joe Biden. That poll watchers and election observers who risked their lives during this pandemic to uphold the integrity of our elections, that stuffed ballot boxes with Biden votes and then they shredded Trump votes. Not one, let me repeat, not one of these things is true. There is no evidence to back up these ridiculous claims. Many of these absurd claims from Donald Trump and his legal team are nothing more than conspiracy theories circulating online. This misinformation and dangerous rhetoric from the president and his allies, including calls for violence, have polluted our discourse and imperiled our peaceful transfer of power. When our colleagues show indifference or outright support for these unsubstantiated claims and conspiracy theories, they lead our nation and our Constitution down a dangerous path. All of us who serve here swore an oath to support and defend our Constitution. I swore that same oath as a naval flight officer many times to midshipmen before that. But all of us here have sworn to support and defend our Constitution, not our political party, and certainly not any individual candidate. Colleagues, for the safety of our citizens and our republic, we must lead by example. We must turn the temperature down. It was a hard-fought campaign. The campaign is over. The votes have been counted. The count has been certified in all 50 states. And in 2 weeks, on January 20th, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be sworn in as President and Vice President of the United States, as they should be. We have serious and urgent challenges that will require working together with our new president, our new vice president, with one another in this chamber, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and with our colleagues over in the House of Representatives. What's on our to-do list? Well, we can start with making sure that hundreds of millions of Americans get vaccinated. So we get off the dime and start vaccinating. We vaccinated 4 million people last month. 4 million. We're supposed to vaccinate 20. How are we ever going to get to 250 million at this rate? What else is on our to-do list? We're getting our kids back to school. We got kids that are unable to get on the internet, unable to participate in their classes, may not have any adult supervision at home. They're struggling, they're falling even further behind. We need to do something to help them. What else is on our to-do list? Getting their parents back to work, just to name a few things. Meanwhile, the millions of people lost jobs, and they don't have skills anymore to fill the jobs that are needed. They need our help. They need to be retooled and retrained. It's time to stop trying to overturn the will of the people and get back to working on their behalf. President Abraham Lincoln has been quoted a couple times here tonight, but he observed at the end of the Gettysburg Address that ours is, of course, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Even in the midst of his Civil War, President Lincoln put his unwavering faith in the people to chart our nation's course. We would be wise to remember Lincoln's words at this moment, at this special moment in our nation's history. We're not a government of Trump, by Trump, and for Trump. We're a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And the people have spoken. The people have spoken. Our job here today is to listen to them. I intend to do that. And I trust that my colleagues will join me in doing that as well. President, I yield the floor.
President.
Senators recognized.
President, first I want to thank all of the first responders who helped protect this sacred chamber today, protect those electoral college ballots. Today is a special day. On a day when some 2,500 or more Americans will lose their lives to the coronavirus, when another 130,000 will be hospitalized with it, when hundreds of small businesses will close their doors and put thousands of Americans out of work. On this day, the United States Senate is not debating how to get more life-saving vaccines into Americans' arms, or how to put 2,000 badly needed dollars into their pockets. No, instead, we are using the first days of the new Senate and Congress to give time to our radical Republican colleagues' faceless and damaging claims of election fraud, all in an attempt to keep Donald Trump in office in violation of the United States Constitution. There's a word for this. It's called sedition. All these unfounded objections to state electors are seditious. They are nothing short of an insurrection against the established order of the United States Constitution and our democratic republic. This is an historically shameful day for the Senate and for our country. To be clear, the notion that there are any meaningful voter fraud that has been identified in the 2020 presidential election is a dangerous, anti-democratic, treasonous fiction. Joe Biden won, Donald Trump lost, period. But that hasn't stopped the president and his supporters from making allegations of voter fraud in some 60 legal challenges across the country, heard by some 90 judges, including Trump judicial appointees. Not one of these challenges succeeded, not one. And despite this reality, my radical Republican colleagues claim we must have a commission to investigate the fraud. Well, we do know one of the most undeniable instances of substantial and significant election fraud ever. We even have a recording and a transcript of it. It's President Trump talking like a mafia boss to the Georgia Secretary of State, a Republican no less, pressuring and threatening him to fix the election in Trump's favor and holding out the prospect of criminal prosecution if he doesn't. Find me 11,780 votes, Trump said. Well, someone should find Donald Trump a real lawyer and measure him for an orange jumpsuit, because the list of statutes that this latest shocking presidential phone call may violate is too long to recite. The president's words on that phone call, indeed his conduct since the election, demand a serious response, one much more serious than the sham before us today. First, federal and state law enforcement authorities should investigate Donald Trump for election fraud, extortion, conspiracy, and whatever other charges fit the bill. Warranted, indict and try him for any crimes he has committed. Second, we must recognize that Donald Trump is and will remain a danger to our Constitution and our democracy. So while time is certainly limited, we should impeach Trump again and bar him from holding office in the future. And finally, we should abolish the Electoral College. It is a vestige of a racist Jim Crow America, and we have outgrown it. Every person's vote in every state should count just the same. One person, one vote. Election fraud and reform are very serious issues. Election reform absolutely should be debated in Congress, which is why instead of today's kabuki theater, I invite my Republican colleagues to stand up and say, yes, we need to protect and expand voting rights and election security. We need automatic voter registration. We need online voter registration. We need same-day voter registration. We should make Election Day a federal holiday. We should restore voting rights to people with prior felony convictions. We should support independent redistricting commissions. Let's spend our time on the floor debating that, debating how to reduce the influence of big money in our political system, to slow the revolving door between government officials and lobbyists, to stop gerrymandering and voter suppression. That's the real election reform that we should be debating and supporting, not these shameful, craven, faceless objections. More than 350,000 Americans have died from the coronavirus. That is the truth. Nearly 8 million people have fallen into poverty because of the economic crisis caused by this virus. That is the truth. Wearing a mask saves lives. Vaccines are safe and effective. That is the truth. Joe Biden won. Donald Trump lost. That is the truth. I urge all my Senate colleagues to vote against these objections, affirm our democracy, and recognize that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will rightfully be sworn in on January 20th as the President and Vice President of the United States.
The senator from Connecticut is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today was